Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. The show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 115. Today is Good Friday when I'm recording, but it will be Tuesday when this episode is released. But today is genuinely, not generally, the first day that it has felt like spring, meaning in the temperature. I woke up this morning and I took Bailey, my dog, for an hour walk around the village. And it literally felt like I could have been wearing just a vest, just a t-shirt. It was beautiful. So to say my cup is full would be an understatement. And so whenever I'm in these high vibe feelings and energy, I always want to jump on the microphone because I want to ricochet that through my voice, through you listening, so that you can maybe hear and feel some of that energy to help moment you and give you that push to finish the rest of your day, to start your day, whatever it is. I hope that you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. Happy Tuesday. You guys, I am so excited. It has been a little while since I have been on the microphone. I traveled to Boston last weekend where I went to an event with Next Level University called Next Level Live. It was absolutely phenomenal. I got to meet so many incredible like-minded individuals. I traveled there by myself, which was an adventure to drive for 8 hours straight without really stopping for much other than coffee and gas. But I really just showed myself that I can do things more than I tell myself I can, and I have more resilience than I sometimes believe that I do. And so it was really a phenomenal experience. But in that, I was batching content because I knew I was going to be busy. But nonetheless, I'm super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all today, to be recording Tuesdays and Thursdays episode. If you haven't checked out last Thursday's episode, number 114, Reasons You Might Be Tired All the Time, I cannot recommend listening to that episode enough. I think it is a very permission-giving, high-level awareness, trauma-informed perspective of why you might be feeling tired all the time. And I know that that's something I think a lot of us can resonate with and can really feel that feeling. So if you haven't checked out that episode, I definitely encourage you to. But without further ado, let's talk about this week's episode. In this week, today's episode, I want to share with you guys how your past might be messing with your present and your future. So, what do I mean by this? I wanted to start off by sharing a story. And I kind of was sitting here deciding the direction in which I wanted to take today's episode. And I thought the story that I want to share makes me feel very uncomfortable to share. But I know that through that and through sharing that with you guys, I might be able to help one person. And so I am uncomfortable sharing this with you all, but my goal as always is to be truthful and to be honest and to speak from my experiences on this podcast, because that is what you guys all come here for, is authenticity and real life stories of not this glamorized stuff that we see on social media. And so I wanted to share with you guys that I have pretty much been in a relationship with someone since like grade 5. And I know that might, like that's puppy love. That's just middle school love, whatever, crushes. But I've always just felt like I need to be in a relationship. I need to be with someone. And I have recently gotten out of a relationship, a almost 2-year relationship with someone that I do care about very, very deeply. We unfortunately just grew apart and things were just not in alignment anymore. However, the point of this is that reflecting back on the fact that I've always been in a relationship, but more so me sitting here reflecting on why have they not been successful? And although I am not putting all the blame on myself, I do think that one of the main reasons relationships fail and how our past is controlling our present and our future is that our past conditioning typically comes out in our relationships, specifically intimate relationships. So I struggle more with connection in intimate relationships than I ever realized. And I think that a lot of this comes from the fact that I have done a lot of healing and a lot of growing and a lot of evolving. But a lot of my past coping strategies, I'll say, have kind of come into place in my relationships. Meaning when I'm triggered, that typically comes out as anger. When I'm overwhelmed, I shut down. When I am super overwhelmed, I can't even speak. I am dissociating. I am numb. And from a partner's perspective, on the other side of that, they view that as the silent treatment, as lash out, as I don't want to talk, as I don't want to communicate. And I can't help but think that this happens to a lot of us all the time, where we are responding in a way based on our conditioning from childhood or from traumatic events without realizing how that's pouring into other avenues of our life. And so the reason this topic surfaced for me was A, yes, because I've recently got out of a relationship, but B, because I'm going to be going live today with my good friend Amy talking about the window of tolerance. And I was sitting here like, I spend a lot of time not in my window of tolerance. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I have lots of episodes on it, but very surface level, our window of tolerance is basically our resilience to stress. When we get overwhelmed, do we pop out of our window, meaning we go into hyperarousal or hypoarousal? Basically being overwhelmed to the point where we're angry, we're lashing out, we're disconnected, or going in the opposite, which is hypoarousal, which is that numb feeling, dissociative, that freeze response. And I was kind of sitting here like, wow, the amount of my last relationship that I spent in a hypoarousal is like kind of alarming. And I think the reason for that is because in doing further reflection, I'm like, okay, I moved back from Alberta, my first time living completely on my own, the first time my body has been able to really sit with all of its past experiences, almost seeming simultaneously all at once. It felt like my whole past just caught up to me once I moved here. And I got into a relationship pretty soon after moving back to my hometown. And from his perspective, he might feel like, what am I doing wrong? Why can I never do anything right? What is going on? When in reality, it's just my past that is creeping up in my present of stuff that I haven't tended to. And then in response to that, the ways that I would act would trigger his past in him. And because we both had opposite attachment styles, oh my Lord, it was a recipe for disaster. When he needed closeness, I needed to draw back. When I needed boundaries, he needed to become closer. And so we really just repelled each other. But the thing is it wasn't our present self repelling each other. It was our past selves. And I know that this is why time and time again, we would get into arguments, we would feel misunderstood, things would be taken to the 10th degree because we just weren't able to communicate how we were truly feeling, because I don't think we actually realized. And so my goal of today is for you to kind of contemplate for yourself, how much is your past experiences, your traumas, your breakups, your childhood, all of your experiences that have shaped you to who you are, but specifically the ones that have shook you up, how might they be taking a toll and taking a seat at the table, for lack of better analogies, in your life now? Are they showing up in ways that you don't even realize? Do they hijack you in times that you don't even realize? For example, let's say your partner says something or does something that really, really bothers you, but in the moment you're like, I don't really know why this is pissing me off so much, but it's super triggering to me. It's likely because something about that situation reminds you of something in the past. A huge example of this is anytime I'm in a conflict with someone and voices get raised, meaning there is yelling above just a kind of regular tone of voice, I instantly go into a state of dissociation. I have a hard time talking. I feel loud ringing in my ears. I have a hard time being present. And I think this was because a lot of my childhood, I heard my parents arguing. And this is not to, share any backstories about my parents, because we all have our stuff and we all have our things. But from my perspective, from a little girl, that yelling and arguing caused me in a way to go into a shell, into a hole, so I wouldn't have to hear it. I wouldn't have to be around it. I didn't want to be present for it. And so my body pulled the ripcord in a way so I wouldn't have to be present. But now there's 24-year-old Jessie who gets in situations with her partner, and I'm not able to communicate effectively. Not because present me doesn't want to, but because past Jessie's being like, hey, we've seen this before. We've experienced this before. We need to protect you. So we're doing this thing to protect you. Where in your life is that happening? Where in your life is your inner child taking over to protect you, but it's actually coming out in a way that's not helpful anymore? Because the difference is that those experiences and what we've done in the past have gotten us to where we are now. And that's like my main message. It's gotten you to here. But how is that being disruptive in your present life? We see this all the time in the workplace where people get super overwhelmed, super triggered. It's like, that's not you currently right now that's upset and triggered. That's your inner child that's mad at you for doing X, Y, and Z. Okay. And so I want you guys to take a snapshot look at your life, specifically around communication, because I think depending on how we grew up pertaining to communicating, especially our emotions, it's really going to give us a lot of evidence as to how we're able to express our feelings and emotions and what we're dealing with in our intimate relationships. If we've never had the opportunity to do that, or that was shown to us in toxic ways, it's likely that you have a weird relationship with it. And yes, the amazing thing, again, why have my podcast? Rewiring the brain. We have the ability to change this. Even me now talking about this, I know that down the road, when I get into another relationship, and I know I have a lot of work to do between now and when that happens, because I recognize that a lot of it does come from my response to things. And so we have to acknowledge it for ourselves, because there's been times where my partners have said, you're overreacting. And that to me is like the worst thing that we can say to someone when they're triggered, because it's like, I know in one part of my brain that I'm overreacting, but also at a certain time in my life, this was how I had to respond potentially to survive. Not to that degree, but for some of us, that is what it felt like to our body. If I don't act like this, I might not make it out. And so if someone is just saying to us, you're so emotional, you're so overwhelming, you never communicate, why are you giving me the silent treatment? Why are you yelling at? It's like, and then it gets worse. And so I think it's an important role for all of us in any relationship to also educate ourselves about our partner's background with trauma, about how they respond to it. Getting knowledgeable about how trauma affects the brain and the body, I think, is one of the best things that we can do to have healthy relationships. Because when we respond in a way that we can identify as just a trigger response, we're able to have the tools to calm that down versus amplifying it and making it worse for each other. Because there is nothing more toxic than two people that are triggered triggering each other, going back and forth. We've all experienced this, you guys. We've all experienced this, whether it's with our parents, with a partner, with a friend, with a stranger, whatever. When we are triggered, it is not the time to have conversations. And I can remember things that have been said in times of trigger, things that I have said, and it's like, that is not something I would ever just say out of a cognitive, calm, grounded state. That is not me speaking. That is my overwhelmed brain trying to protect me and lashing out. How much is your past messing with your present and your future? This is a huge question that I think we need to contemplate on all areas. I'm specifically talking about the realm of communication and about triggers and those things, but insert thing here that might be affecting you. Maybe that's your relationship with food. Maybe that's your relationship with money. Maybe that's your relationship with friendships. Whatever it is about your past that kind of shaped who you are, it's likely in some way, shape, or form, it's kind of showing up in your present. If you've been shown your whole life that men are toxic or women are toxic, you might still hold a belief to this day that that is true. If you believe that money equals power, which equals negative, you might avoid any type of thing that could do with money. If you always were shown that food was a negative thing or was a safety thing, whatever it is, you might still hold that association now. So it's super important that we recognize that it doesn't matter if you are 15 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old, whenever it is that you are listening to this, whatever age you are at, it is not too late to recognize these things and to do the work to change them. It is never too late to bring awareness to our past. And it will typically force you in a way to bring awareness to it when we're at a place in time that we are ready for it and that our body feels safe, which is kind of the interesting thing. And so if you've been going through a phase lately where you feel like everything is kind of catching up to you simultaneously, it's likely just because your body feels safe psychologically for the first time. And so we also have to honor that that wouldn't show up unless your body knew in some way, shape, or form you were ready for it. So a couple things that we can do about recognizing our past playing a role into our present is to really educate ourselves, I think is the first thing that I already mentioned. Educating ourselves very simplistically of having that psychoeducation of how trauma plays a role in the mind and in our body, how circumstances shape who we are, how much our inner child developed our adult self. Our brain, yes, it can change up to the age of 25, and some things even say a little bit further than that. But a lot of the fundamental stuff is actually wired in there from the ages of 0 to 5. So depending on those psychological events that happen during that time, those parts of you might actually be showing up an adult version of you, which is so interesting that our 0 to 5-year-old self can come out at certain times, which I definitely can relate to during certain times of conflict, feeling like I'm stomping my feet, slamming the door, and acting like a child. It's like, that makes sense. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation. That's kind of my favorite line that I used to share with my clients. This gives you an explanation of why you're acting like this, but it's not always an excuse. It's not an excuse, especially if it's harm to self, harm to others, or harm to things. So educating ourselves. Then it's really our job to heal. And healing is going to look different to each and every one of us. Going to therapy is something I probably share on every single podcast episode because it changed my life. It changed my life more than I can ever express to you. And again, I've been staying on here for a couple weeks. I'm in the process of finding a therapist. It's time that I actually just bite the bullet because guess what? I'm scared. I'm a mental health professional. I'm a social worker. I've been on the counselor side of the table, and I'm scared to go. And so I think it would be unrealistic for me to sit here and say that I also don't get scared and overwhelmed. So know that it's okay and to be gentle with yourself. It takes time to heal. It takes the right person to support us in getting there. But when we're surrounding ourselves with people that kind of encourage that journey for us, it makes it a little bit easier. So I definitely encourage you, if you've never done your ACEs score, if you've never looked at your inner child experiences before, there is no better time than the present to kind of open that door and build that relationship with our inner child again, of just letting them know that they still exist within us. We love them, we're proud of them, and we're so sorry for any hurt that they might have endeavored, but that really does shape who we are. Learning to communicate. This one is kind of going to come simultaneously with the healing, but it's also kind of goes in tangent with noticing what's happening and noticing our triggers. In order to be able to work on effective communication, especially with intimate relationships, we have to begin to communicate to ourselves when something is happening. We have to begin to notice what our triggers are and not playing into them. My last relationship, the one I just got out of, we did get to a point where we were able to say, hey, I'm triggered right now. Can we take 5? Getting to that same level with each other is gonna take work. And this is why when people say relationships don't take work, I'm like, in what world? In what world? You have 2 individuals that have completely different back experiences, stories, triggers, like across the board, completely different. We are coming together as one. There is going to be triggers. There's going to be overwhelm. There's going to be miscommunication. There's going to be lash out. but it's the extent in which it happens, the severity, how much we're catching it, but how much we're doing the work for ourselves. I think a lot of us depend on our intimate relationships to kind of fix us, to tend to us, to heal us, to give us all those things that we need. But that quote, we can't love anybody else until we learn to love ourselves. I think it's that we can't love anybody else until we learn how we operate and what our triggers are. Because at least if we know what they are and we're able to communicate them with someone who's open and receptive to hearing these things and accepting them and working on them with us while simultaneously they're working on theirs, that is how we build a magnificent relationship with self and with others. So, you guys, this is a huge, huge topic. I really just wanted to come in here and prime your mind, kind of get in there, get you to contemplate for yourself of how much your past might be playing a role, but also if we bring awareness to it, we can shift it. Because maybe you're sitting there going, I've never really realized how much middle school me is kind of showing up, and okay, that college version of me might still be showing up here. And we have to really ask ourselves if that's something that we want, if we have a healthy relationship with that, or if we want to pivot and do the work to shift it. Only you can decide that. Only you can do the work on that. And so I, again, really just wanted to raise your awareness, raise your consciousness on how much your past might be playing a role in your present and in your future self. And look at the cycles, look at the repetitive cycles. Because this is something that I did. I'm like, okay, there's a theme here, and the theme is that I'm not able to calm myself down or express what I'm needing in those moments. And so that's why this cycle perpetuated. So what are those cycles in your life? If you're looking to connect, if you're looking for support with this, if you're like, Jessie, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do to dive into this, there's a link below. Book a free 30-minute call with me. I would love to jump on with you and just see how I can support you, how I can coach you, how I can mentor you through this. That is my new role, my new hat that I'm wearing, and I absolutely love doing it. I'm working with 3 folks right now, and it has been absolutely amazing. So if that interests you, link is in below. I truly, truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to chatting with you all on Thursday. All the love, you guys. Chat with you all soon. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.